Breaking news! With Comic-Con now coming out in full swing, we got our first major hit as far as the news lines are coming in. And it's Dynamite who makes the first move, the first big announcement. And what is that big announcement? They got some new titles coming. They've got some new... And what I mean by new titles... Now, we all know they've got Disney IP under their belt now, like with Darkwing Duck, Gargoyles... some other stuff down the line, of course, the Disney villain line. But now it seems another movie company has come to Dynamite saying, here, take our IP, make stuff with our IP, make it interesting. And that group was Warner Brothers, because it turns out they are Dynamite Comics is getting not only are they getting the likes of they're getting Thundercats, that's the big one, but they're also getting Powerpuff Girls, Flintstones, Johnny Quest, and the Wizard of Oz. Although I think that's MGM, but I don't know where the rights lie for that one, because technically Wizard of Oz is public domain. Shut up, whatever. So yes, Dynamite Comics is just up the ante. They have sincerely upped the ante in terms of, hey, we got all this cool shit, what are you gonna do now? It looks like it's like the days of IDW where they got all this cool IP and are gonna do cool things with it. Now, of course, DC had the comic rights to Thundercats for the longest time, as did they with He-Man. But I guess the parent companies were like, you've had him enough. You've had him long enough. Of course, that's how we got the He-Man Thundercats crossover and its sequel of He-Man and Injustice. But now He-Man is over at Dark Horse. Thundercats is now at Dynamite. But that's the big thing, is that the fact that we are having these major IPs going to Dynamite Comics, it really does remind me of the days of IDW in its heyday. It really does remind me of IDW in the heyday. Where they got all the Cartoon Network stuff. They also got some other IPs from Hasbro. It was a big deal, and it was a major deal. And I do fear that Ninja Turtles is really the only thing keeping them alive at this point. That's really what it is. Is that IDW is all I think we've all and I love IDW. Don't misunderstand me. I love IDW to death, but personally, if it weren't for Ninja Turtles, they wouldn't have anything else. And, let me rephrase that. Ninja Turtles and Star Trek. That's really what's keeping this company alive, is Ninja Turtles and Star Trek. And maybe a few other titles here and there. But, now that they've lost G.I. Joe and Transformers, and they still do some Hasbro properties like MLP. They do My Little Pony. But really, they took a crippling hit when they lost Transformers and G.I. Joe. So really, all they have now is TMNT and Star Trek. And that's really it. That's really those two IPs are really what's keeping the title going. Now, let's get into this storyline. Let's get into not storyline, but let's get into more of this news. Let's talk about the big thing you all want me to talk about, because I'm the crossover guy. And God, please, can we get a crossover announcement? I'm begging here. We had several over the span of a year with all Ninja Turtles, but please, give me something. I'm begging you, Comic-Con. I'm begging you. Give me something. Give me a crossover announcement, please. Anyway, I'm ignoring that, because, yeah, I am the crossover guy, so you're probably asking, well, this means we can get, Thundercats and Gargoyles, or, Powerpuff Girls with the Shadow or something. Although, I will be honest, if we can get a Shadow and Johnny Quest crossover, that'd be fucking dope. I would love a Johnny Quest, the Shadow crossover. Would it happen? I don't know. I will say, though, don't get your hopes up, is what I'm saying. If you think that we're going to get, Gargoyles versus Thundercats or something of that, no. There's no way in hell that Warner Brothers and Disney are going to work on that. Do you know the hoops that IDW had to pull to get that Star Trek TNG crossover done, that Star Trek Doctor Who crossover. Yeah, remember that one, that 8-part comic, and how much of a big deal it was that we actually had Star Trek TNG meeting Doctor Who. That was a big deal because the parent companies always get the final say on what gets to be made. So it took them years. It took IDW years to get Paramount and BBC working together. Yeah. That's why some crossovers, just like the unmade Star Trek TNG Alien crossover, yeah, that got announced, but Fox Studios and Paramount couldn't come together on it. So that's kind of the thing, is that there's no way in hell, there's absolutely no way on God's green earth that we are going to be able to get, like, Disney characters meeting Warner Brothers characters. Now, having said that, Warner Brothers characters crossing over, that's a different story at Dynamite. I do see that could happen. Warner Brothers would be more open to it, and I imagine there would be... I think they also said there's going to be Jetsons, so maybe they'll do like a new version of Jetsons Meet the Flintstones. I think this is really cool. Now, they haven't really said like what creative teams are on what for the other titles. All they've really said was Thundercats, and the one they had for Thundercats is the writer Delkin Shavely, who I only know from the Old Man Logan versus Wolverine, the Old Man Logan versus Deadpool comic, and a few other minor things. He's now the writer for the Alien books over at Marvel, and I've heard they're really good. They're very focused on horror, more than action horror, so that's cool. I think the direction's pretty interesting, because they've said that like this is going to focus on like Lion-O on Third Earth. Like this story is gonna focus more on like the Thundercats still on Third Earth and the falling of Third Earth, is from what I understand. And it's gonna focus on like Lion-O's, like the impact he had on becoming a leader. Which, okay. It does like, so we're gonna have Lion-O still young? I don't know, because remember, he grew in size but not in mind. So I don't know. It sounds like an interesting concept. Let's see the execution. But yeah, look at Dynamite go. Look at them, just like, you know, they've now taken all these IPs and they're now running with it. While still having like their flagship titles like Red Sonja and Vampirella and Shadow. Well, the Shadow comes and goes. And now we also had this announcement yesterday of Garth Ennis doing a James Bond book. Can you just imagine that for a second? Like, could you just stop and imagine that Garth Ennis is doing a James Bond comic? The creator of The Boys is making a James Bond book, which actually, in theory, it sounds really bad, but honestly, considering he loves writing human-like characters, and I actually really loved his take on, of course, Punisher Max. But I really loved his Shadow comic when he did The Shadow. So I think he'd be really good at it. I think he'd be a solid pick for this comic. So yeah, way to go, Dynamite! You got Powerpuff Girls, you got Flintstones, Space Ghost. They got Space Ghost. I'm kind of hoping maybe we could get some other titles, like maybe some, I don't know, SWAT Cats would be nice. Come on, give us SWAT Cats, or maybe Captain Planet. I'm waiting for the I don't think like the article I read didn't show the creative teams for those, but I'm hoping they're really good. I personally would love to see Amanda Conner go back to Flintstones, because I read some of those comics of Amanda Conner's Flintstone book from when they were doing it in DC. I thought those were really it was like a fun adult sitcom, which is going to be completely just blow this upcoming animated show out of the water, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you guys think of Dynamite not only acquiring the comic rights to Thundercats, but also like Powerpuff Girls and all these others? What are you hoping for these other titles? Like, what are you hoping for these other comics? And what do you want to see from them? Obviously, we're not going to talk about crossovers, especially like with the Disney IPs. But could see something with Warner Brothers crossing over in-house with these titles, like kind of like when they did over at IDW, the Super Secret Crisis War, when they did that a while back. So could we get another Crisis War kind of storyline with these characters? Absolutely. Or even something along the lines of the Future Quest comic, which I really loved. It was a great love letter to Darwin Cook. Anyway, I almost said Dalvin Cook. I was like, nope, that's a football player, Darwin Cook. Anyway, so once again, just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.